Yeah, so guys, in this today's session, so we will learn about the life cycle hooks in a component. Yeah, in this session, today we will learn about the life cycle hooks, or we can call as a life cycle methods also. So life cycle methods also we can say it as life cycle methods or hooks. So that are in a component. Let's try to see it. So if you go you go into our this one Angular life cycle. Okay, if you type to search here, you'll be able to see the life cycle hooks here in this one. So these are the life cycle hooks actually we will be having. So these are the life cycle hooks. Let's try to learn one by one. So what are these life cycle hooks actually? So what are these life cycle hooks are? So for example, let's say that when a component is getting executed, okay? So when a component, so for example, let's say any component, let's say app component.ts, any component. So we know that Angular is made up of completely components. So for example, let's say we are having a components, this type of things. Let's try to delete this one. So for POC I have did, we'll try to do one by one again. Let's say that this is a component. In order to execute this component, so whenever this component is first loaded, so first initialized, so it will go through a series of steps. So series of steps, something like component initialized, before component initialized, after component initialized, and when this view is initialized, so when this HTML is loaded. So these all the things we will be having a hook methods. So these are called as a life cycle methods. So complete component life cycle. So from creation to the end, from the destroying up to there. So you will be having some life cycle methods for this one. So first we'll try to see what are the life cycle methods that are involved in a component, in an Angular component, and we'll see when these components will be executed. So if you go here into this one, so these are the 8 life cycle methods that you will be having for a component. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Yeah, these are the 8 components, 8 methods. So let's try to open the notepad. I will try to tell you one by one. So first, whenever the component is initialized, so whenever a component is created by the Angular, the first method which will fire is the ng on changes. Okay, so this is the method which it will fire. So when this one will fire is, if I try to say, so it will respond, so it will automatically, this method will execute when Angular sets or resets the input properties. So you know that we have in a component we have a input properties, we have properties. So one is nothing but an input properties which have a input decorator like this. So whenever Angular sets a value to this one or changes a values to this one, then this ng on changes will invoke. Okay, so this one is called before the first one. So before the first one means normally the constructor will be called first. So that is normal thing. So constructor is not a life cycle of the Angular component. So this is a class thing. So if a class is instantiated means constructor will execute automatically. So this ng on changes, it will try to execute. So this is called first one, first time. Okay, whenever the input changes, first time it will call, and also whenever the input value changes or anything, then again this ng on changes will fire. So this is the ng on changes, whenever the input value initialized and changed. Okay, so this is the first one, ng on changes. Next one is the ng on init. So this ng on init will be initialized, so whenever the first component is initialized. So this ng on init initialize the component after Angular first displays the data bound properties and input properties. These are all the things. For example, ng on init, when it will fire is, what I want to say is, so when these Angular properties are there, right? So where you have users like these properties, variables or whatever thing. So normally you used to call it as a properties. Users, input properties, output properties, these are all the things after initializing those all the things, then ng on init will fire. So this one will fire. Okay, so this one will be called only once after the first ng on changes. So when this first ng on changes is fired, immediately this ng on init will fire. ng on init is still called when So this one is the this one is filed only once when the component is there. So next one is another one is an ng do check. Okay, so this is one of the important thing, not important thing, this is one of the danger thing which we need to. So whenever any changes occur in the either in the template or what I can say, or a property change, anything in the component, anything, if a change occurs means this immediately this ng2 check will fire. So any change detection. So for example, when you are trying to write the input box, you are trying to write some data, right? Then also this ng2 check will fire. So this one is one of the danger thing, that every time it will try to check that whether I need to whenever anything happens, any button click happens means it will check in the ng2 check will execute that whether I need to do any logic or not. So like that it will try to do it. So this will impact the performance when you try to implement this one. So try to remember that where you should have a particular reason when you are trying to implement this ng2 check method. The next one is an ng after content init. So this is the another method. So this one is also called only once. So when this one will be fired is, you know that we have a something like app-user. So we will be having this component, okay, app-user, and in this between this one, so you will be writing the div element and all those things you will be writing, right? So this one, we use this one in the app user component like an ng content. So ng content, we use like this ng content, so that this ng content will be placed in that one. Okay, so these all the where is that one gone? So these all the content will be placed here. So when this one is initialized after the content, this is called as an ng content. So this ng after content initialized, so after initializing this one, after placing this one into this one, then this one will be fired. Okay, after the placing of this ng content. Then next you will have an ng after content check. Okay, so after content check, so whenever any changes occurs in the ng content, so whenever any variable updates or anything appears in this one, so this one will fire. So this one will fire every time after ng do check fires. So for example, ng do check is fired means then afterwards ng after content also will be fired. Why? Because it will also check that whether I need to update any content or something like that, it will try to check. So ng do check will fire. If ng do check is fired means again afterwards immediately ng after content checked also will be fired. So next one is an ng after view init. ng after view init. So this is also one of the thing. Okay, one second. Yeah, so ng after view init. So this one, when it will fire is when our template is initialized. So we have a template with HTML data, right? So when this component HTML data, all the things is initialized, after that one, so this one will fire. Okay, so next one comes under the ng after view check. So this one will fire whenever ng do check and ng after content checked is fired. So this is something like a chain reaction. When ng do check is fired, immediately after one ng content will check that whether I need to update anything in the content or not. Immediately this ng after view checked also will be fired. Whenever any change occurs this one will also will fire. So these are the things, and afterwards last one is an ng on destroy. So this one is fired when the component is removed from the DOM. Okay, removed from the DOM. So this ng on destroy will fire. So these are the different, what I can say, these are the different life cycle methods that are available in the Angular. So ng on changes, ng on init, ng do check, ng after content init, and one second, yeah, ng after content init, ng after content check, ng after view init, ng after view check, and ng on destroy. So these are the life cycle looks. So now if we try to see our Angular in our Angular documentation, let's try to see it. So here if you try to see ng on changes, so this is the first one. So it will have this is the only lifecycle method which has a parameter. We'll try to discuss about this parameter also. It's a simple changes object you will be having. So we'll try to see. So node thing also we'll try to see it. And next one is the ng on init. So whenever the component is initialized, this one will fire. Ng do check, detect and act upon the changes. So this one will fire immediately, called immediately after ng on changes on every change, and immediately after ng on it. So 2 times it will call. When ng on changes is fired and also ng on it fired, so 2 times it will fire at the initial time. I told you, right? So when ng on changes is fired, so then it will set some input properties or some logic will be executing. Immediately ng do check will fire that, okay, I need to do any template update or anything. So then afterwards ng on it will fire. So this depends. So that means totally in the component, when ng on changes, ng on init fires, ng do check will fire immediately 2 times. Then afterwards it will fire whenever any change is appearing. This ng do check will fire all the time. Then is an ng after content in. When an external content means nothing but the content which we are trying to inject using the ng content. So this one will fire, called only once after the ng do check. Okay. So after content check, this one will be called after every subsequent ng do check. So this one will be called whenever ng do check is called, immediately ng after content init is also ng after content checked also will be called. So then afterwards ng after view init. So this one will fire when the views and the child views and all those things are loaded. This one will fire. So then afterwards ng after view check. This is the ng on destroy. So let's try to see a simple example in this one so that you will try to understand it. Now let's go on to this one, and here I will try to create ng-gc. I will create a new component. Let's try to maximize this one so that you'll be able to see. Okay, fine. Let's try to open here. So life cycle methods. So I am creating a component with name life cycle methods. Let's try to create it. So it is creating. Let it take time to create. Yeah, it has created. So now we have created a life cycle method, and you know that it will be added in the app module also. So that is the common thing. So now here we are having constructor and the ng on init. So first we'll try to say, so we need to use this one in our app component.html. So let's try to remove these all things, and I will try to use app-life-cycle-methods. So this is the component we'll be using, and let's go to the ts file, and here I will try to do console.log constructor call. Okay, so this is the first one. So this is the first one, constructor call, and ng on init. So let's try to take the ng on init, console.log ng on init call. Okay, so let's try to execute it. So these are the two things I am doing console. Let's go to here and let's open this one, console. Okay, so we got the component initialized. So here if you try to see, constructor is called, the first time it has called the constructor, and the next on ng on init is called. So we already seen in our lifecycle roots, the first lifecycle method which we will be calling is the ng on changes. Okay, so ng on changes. So let's try to add this ng on changes, console.log ng on changes called. Okay, so now ng on change call. Let's try to see the output. If I try to see the output, so this time if you try to see, constructor is called, ng on init is called, but ng on changes is not called. So what could be the reason? So here this one has not been called. So what could be the reason is, here I told you that ng on changes, when it will call, whenever we have an input properties. Okay, whenever we have an input properties with the input and these things, so then only this ng on changes will call. Okay, the very first time. So we don't have any input properties here. So that is the reason Angular is smart enough that, so okay, there are no input properties available. There is no reason to fire this ng on changes. Because of that reason, it is not firing. For example, let's say from the app component.html, and here I will try to pass a user, something like user. Okay, some data I am trying to pass it. So now let's try to capture that here. So now I want to capture that one using an @input. So we will be having a user, and I will try to make it as a string. Okay, so default one I will treat as empty. So let's try to input for the input from the Angular code. So that's it. So I have mentioned this one as an default one. So that is the reason there is no need to implement the bang operator. If you don't mention this one is equal to empty, then you need to mention it. Now now we have an input property. Now let's see that whether ng on changes will fire or not. So if I try to refresh this one, so here see, first is the constructor called, immediately ng on changes is called, then on ng on init is called. Okay, now ng on changes is the first lifecycle method in Angular which will be called if you have an input property. So here you need to understand the use case that if you have an input property for a class. So if you don't have input property and you implemented ng on changes and you are expecting that one to fire, means it will not fire. So if you have an input property, then it will fire. Now this one will have a parameter changes. So any variable, whatever the variable you want, you can take it. So this is of type simple changes. Okay. So what does this variable as? Let's try to see the console.log. So if you try to see the changes, this console.log you are having. Let's try to see the output. So if you try to see the output here, you will be able to see an object that is of type simple change. So now if you try to see the input property, what we have got it, the current value is user. So the input property, what I have sent it here from the app component. So we are able to get the value here. The first time we are getting it is true. So the first change, the previous value before that one is false. So for example, let's say that I am passing in another thing. Okay, item or something like this is equal to item. Okay, so now I am passing two input properties and now I want to capture the two input properties here. So here I will try to take the item. That's it. Now let's try to see what would be the output here. If you try to see the output this time, so these changes have a two input properties. It is telling that this component has a two input properties. The current value it is holding item is the item, and the current value the user is holding is the user. For example, let's say that we have a button. Problem here, why it is shouting again? Already we have written right here. Let's leave it like that. So now let's go to this app component.ts. So let's say that I have a button here. Okay, let's say that I have a button. Okay, so button, let's say that change data. So when I click on this one, where is this one? Click, yeah, when I click on this one, I will try to write on change data. So I am changing something. Okay, so here I will try to take this one in the app component.ts. Let's try to initialize the variables user data. So first time it will be empty or otherwise let's say anything, and item data, let's say items, something like this. So now we are having a variable on change data. So on change data, what I will try to do is this dot user data equal to something like, I will try to change Leela one or something like that, or Leela user data user value changed or something like that. So then also it will change this dot item data is equal to, or otherwise you'll try to change only one value only so that we can see. Let's go here, and user will be having a variable user data. Okay, item will be sending a variable value item data. Okay, so this is the input variables we are having. So now let's try to see here. So first time what it is calling here, so simple changes we are able to get, item is having an items and user is having an Leela. So fine, we are able to get it. Now let's try to click on this button. When I click on this button, the values which I am trying to send to this component, so I am updating the user data. Let's try to see that I am able to get that data or not. So if I try to click on this one, see immediately ng on change, again it has been called in the component. Which component? Lifecycle component, and it is telling that this user value has been changed. User value changed. Previous value it was Leela. This is not the first change. So the first change was already Leela was there, right? So now the current value it is holding is the user value change. So that means you need to understand here what I am trying to tell you. So this ng on changes will fire whenever the input properties from the parent is changing. So then this ng on changes will fire with carrying those changes value, previous value and the current value. It will have those values. So the next thing what we will be having is So the next thing what we will be having is, one second. So the next thing what we will be having is, what I can say. ng on changes, ng on init, these all things are completed, right? Constructor ng on changes, ng on init, these all things are completed. So now let's try to see another lifecycle method. So what are the lifecycle methods that we are learning? So we have seen about the ng up to ng on changes, we have seen it. So up to here you have understood, right? Now let's try to see about the ng do check. So the ng on init you already know. ng on init when it will fire. So after the ng on changes, so first time when the component initializes, this one will fire. So this is the one time thing only. So let's try to see another one is an ng do check. So now you understood about this one. So let's go into the lifecycle methods, and here I will try to fire ng do check. Okay, so this is the ng do check. So ng do check, well it will fire. Let's try to see. So this is one of the dangerous thing which we should never use it. So when you have a strong reason only, then we need to use it. I will try to tell you. So why? I will show you the scenario. So this is an ng do check. Now if you try to see here, we have already seen that 2 times it will call for the initial time. So here you have called this ng do check, and also ng do check has been called second time also. So whenever a template changes is occurred, so ng on change call, ng on init call, immediately ng do check has been called 2 times. Okay, for one for the ng on change and another for the ng on init. So like this it will fire. So I will try to show you when this ng on init will fire. See, when this input values is changed, then also ng do check is firing. Why? Because so some values has been changed, some action has been done in the lifecycle component. So do I need to execute this method? So it will execute all the times this method. For example, let's say that in the lifecycle method we have a button. Okay, we have a button. So let's say that dummy button. Let's say that this is a dummy button which is present in the lifecycle component, not in the app component. So now let's try to see the button. So now I will try to click on this button. So nothing will happen, right? So nothing is there to happen. Okay, so normally it will have nothing also, so it will do nothing. So this dummy button, so nothing is there. So this dummy button does not do anything. So now ng do check didn't fire. So what I will try to do is, here I will try to use the click event. Okay, so on change or something like this. So okay, dummy method. Okay, I will try to call on change dummy or something like this. So I am using this method. So now when you try to use this method, and I will try to call this method here on change dummy, and I will not do anything. Okay, I left it like this only. Now let's try to see whether what will happen here. So now all the things are in edge. I clicked on here. See, ng do check is called immediately. I didn't do anything. So in the template, nothing has happened. So what I did here, I just added a click event, and the one method is there, and it came to one method. This method also doesn't do anything. So it's an empty method, but still ng do check is firing. Why? Because if anything changes occur, so even the click means it is calling the method on change dummy, then immediately this ng do check will fire. Something event has happened. So that is the reason. So now you understand that whenever we change a property values or anything, then also this ng do check will fire like that. Okay, so that is the thing you need to understand. So this one will fire all the time whenever any change occurs in the component. So anything, any execution or any change, any variable called or any variable updated, also it will try to do it. So that is the thing you need to understand. Okay, so another thing what I want to tell you is ng do check is completed. So next one is ng after content init. So this one will be fired only once. So when the external content is initialized. So now ng after content. So let's try to remove this change dummy. So you understood about the do check. So this thread, right? So now you need to understand about this one. That is the reason I have added. So let's try to go ng after content init. Okay, so this is the method. AF should be small. So let's try to add console.log ng after content init called. So this is another ng after content init. Now This one will be fired only once when the external ng content data is placed. This one will be fired. So if it is placed or also not placed also, it will fire. Okay, so don't think like an ng on changes. So now we are not using any ng on content, right? Here we are not using any ng content. So don't think like that, it will fire. So why? Because this is also a content, these are all things, so it will fire it. So here, so ng on content will fire only once. After that, so ng to check these all things is completed. So this ng content in it will fire. So now next one is an ng after content check. So this is also one of the danger thing. So this all will fire immediately. Immediately means, okay, so this one. So let's try to add this one. Okay, ng after content check. Okay, so what is the name of this one? Check. Okay, so if you are not able to know about this one, so you can also implement it here. So on content checked or something like that, you will be having on content on after, you don't know what is that one, content checked or what content. So we'll be having a interface for this one, content checked or something like that. I didn't remember exactly. So actually in older Angular, we need to implement the interface, these all things. So going on latest Angular, so there is no need to implement this one. So for example, on changes, if you want to implement, you can use on changes, you see here. So if you try to implement this on changes, then if you don't implement this one, so it will throw an error. So if you don't implement this one, so it will throw an error. Sorry. So let's try to remove this one. It is not removing. Control X, Control C. Okay. It is. Let's try to keep comment. The keyboard is not working. So now if I try to keep a comment here, so this system is very slow, I don't know. Yeah, so now immediately you will get an error here. It will tell you that you are implementing an interface on changes, then must and should you need to implement the ng on changes, it is trying to say. So that is the reason. So if you try to use this one, so must and should you need to implement. So in the same scenario, you will be having those interface methods also. When you are using ng after content check, these are all the things also you'll be having. I didn't remember actually. After content check, yeah, here you'll be able to see it, right? So these are all the things. So ng after content check, so ng on changes we are using, right? Then what is the reason you are using? Life cycle ng after content check. I kept wrong or what? Ng after content check, it is there. Ng after content, what is the reason it is telling? Might be slow, I think, I don't know. It's telling life cycle methods 41 error, declaration of statement expected, something is wrong. Ng on changes input. Okay, this constructor gone, I think, copy paste mistake. Okay, so like this. So after content check, when you implement this one, so must and should you need to implement. So if I try to remove this one, immediately you will get an error. It is not saving, I don't know. So immediately you will get an error. It will show you an error, but this one is slow. It is trying to save. It is trying to show you something. So like this, so it will show an error that you must have to implement the after content check. When you are implementing the interface, you need to implement this one. Why this one gone? So now it will show you an error. The ng after content check is missing. Please try to implement this one. Okay. So now when I try to implement this one, okay. So now I have implemented. So this is the ng after content check. So this one, if you try to see, so this one will fire all the time. Okay. So whenever I click on this one, ng on change is called because of the input data change. ng do check is called. Immediately ng after content check also will be called. Whenever ng do check is called, this one will be also called. So this is the thing you need to understand. Now next one is an ng after uinit. Okay, so console.log ng after uinit initialized. Okay, so this one also you will have after uinit interface. If you want to, you can implement it. So previously in old Angular we need to implement compulsory when you are trying to use the lifecycle loop, we need to implement the interface here, but now there is no need. So if you implement it, so it will try to make you compulsory that you need to implement this method. So now if this one also will be executed only once when after the template view is initialized. So here after content checked call and all those things, then it will call the after view initialize. So that means complete template, everything is initialized. That means child view, everything. So if you are using a child component, child inside a component, after that component initialization, everything completed, then this one will be initialized. So this is the thing you need to understand. So next one comes the ng after view checked. So if you don't know about this name or something like that, you can implement the interface so that it will try to give you that method, the lifecycle method name. So normally we will not implement these all the lifecycle methods. Just I am trying to show you what are the available methods. Most what we will try to use is ng on init or ng on changes. Very rare cases we'll use. These are ng after view unit we will be using. That's it. These all the things are very dangerous. We will not use. So now ng after view checked we have fired, right? So this one will fire whenever ng2check is called. Afterwards ng content checked will call, then afterwards immediately after view check will call. So for example, if try to see here, ng on changes is called because input change has changed. ng2check is called, immediately ng2check is called, immediately after content check will call. When this content check is called, immediately after check. This is a chain reaction. So whenever do check is called, content will call and this one also will call. So like this it will go on call. For example, if I try to click on again, see, nothing has happened, but ng2check is called, ng after content is called, and again end. So like this it will be going on calling. So now ng on changes will not call this time. Why? Because Angular is smart enough that when you are trying to click on the button, so here in this button, so you are trying to change the data, but the data what you are trying to change, so you are not changing anything, you are reassigning again the value. So now this time the Angular will be smart enough that the content has not been changed. So why I need to call this ng on changes? If it is changed means then it will call. But this ng do check, ng after content check, and in these all the things will not accept. So anything is action is happening means immediately these things will call. So ng2 check followed by this check, then followed by this check. Okay. And the last one is an ng on destroy. Okay. ng on destroy. So this one will fire on component destroy. Okay. So on component destroy. So how can I show this component destroy is, for example, I will have a button here, destroy component. Which component? Lifecycle component. I want to destroy this lifecycle component. I will use the click method on destroy component or something like that. Okay. So now let's try to go to the app component.ts file, and here I will try to use on destroy component, and I will try to use show lifecycle, show component. Okay, default one it will be a true, and this time on destroying what I will try to do is this dot show component, I will make it as a false. So now let's try to go to this destroy component, and in this app component.html, so this one I need to show when ng if is equal to show, show component is there. So now I will be destroying this one. So now let's try to see the output. So these all the things has been called. First constructor ng on changes is called, ng on init, then afterwards ng2 check is called, and ng after content init, ng after content check, ng after view initialize. These are all the things we'll call. Okay, so these are all the things you understood. Now I am clicking on the change data. You know that ng on changes is fired. Why? Because we have changed the user data. ng check is fired. So like this everything will be fired. If I try to click on this one, again these all field files. Now I am trying to destroy this component. Now if I click on this one, see, now this time you get called on component destroy. So before destroying that component, so here this method will execute. Where is that one? So this ng on destroy will execute, and then afterward it will destroy the component. So this is all about the life cycle methods that are available in the Angular. So these are the things: ng on changes, ng on init, ng do check, ng after content init, ng after content check, ng after view init, ng after view check, and ng on destroy. So these are the lifecycle loops. These are the 8 lifecycle methods that we will be using. More often what we will be using is ng on destroy. So ng after content init. So I will try to show you when we will try to use this one. ng after view init, ng on init, ng on changes. These things only. So ng do check. These are all the things. If you try to do, the performance will go away. The next thing what we will try to learn is the. So these are all the things about the lifecycle loops. Now what we will try to do is we will try to learn about the content child. Why? Because we have learned about the view child. Okay. So there is another thing that is nothing but a content child. I have already shown you how we can communicate between the components parent to child using the view child. Also I have shown you. If you apply a reference for the component, you will get a component instance, so that you can access the properties and methods of the component of that component using that component instance. We can do it. Now this is a content child. So what is this content child? Let's try to see. So now let's go into the app component.html file. Okay. So this is the lifecycle method. I will try to create a new component. ng-gc content child component. Okay. So I want to show you about the content child. So we have a content child component. Let's try to generate it. Yeah, we have generated. Try to understand this one. So here we are having this one. So let's try to remove these all things not needed. So we will write app-content child component, right? So now inside this one we have a one paragraph element. So this is a content paragraph. I am using this one. Okay. So now I have a reference for this one. Okay. So now let's go to the app content child component. Let's go to this one and let's try to implement here. Content child works, and here at the down I want to add this one ng content. Okay. So now let's try to open this code. So if I try to open this one, I'm able to see this. This is a content paragraph. Okay. But I want to access this template. I want to access this element. So how can I access? Normally we know that this element. So what is this one? This paragraph element belongs to this content child component. So what you may be thinking, so here I can access something like @viewchild. Okay, so that one is having a reference, right? Ref. And here I can use a para element ref. Okay. So like this I can use. So you may be thinking like this, but this will not happen like that. Why? Because viewchild will work only to the elements which are having in its own template. But here the paragraph element doesn't exist in this template. It is existing in the parent component, but it is accessed through the content child. If you want to access that parent element, means how can you access? So that one is only through the, you can remove this one, only through the here in this app component only. So this one is this paragraph is present in this component only. If you want to access here only, you can access it. So if I try to go into this one, and here I can use the view child. Okay, so let's try to import this view child, and I can use this ref, and I can use this para and element ref. Element ref. Okay, so let's try to keep a exclamatory mark here. So now view child here it is having. Now you need to understand that. So now view child reference is there. So let's go on to the ng on init. So when this one is initialized, okay. So when this component is initialized, so let's try to print the console.log this dot para. Okay. So I want to get the details of this one. Let's try to see the output. If I try to see the output, so we are getting this one as an undefined. Okay. So why we are getting, so actually this paragraph element is existing, but we are getting this one as undefined. So why we are getting is, I already told you this lifecycle hook ng on init. When this ng on init will fire, when these properties and input properties all are initialized, so this view child, everything, when these class properties and all those things are initialized, immediately ng on init will fire. By that time, this view file is not rendered. Okay, so this HTML is not rendered. So when this one will when this HTML is rendered only, then I can able to get this paragraph element. So here this is not the correct way to use the paragraph in the ng on init. Where we need to use, we have another thing, ng after view init. Okay, so in this one, so this method will fire whenever this HTML is view file is initialized. So the name itself indicates ng angular after view initialization. So after view initialize, this method will fire. Now if I try to console.log here, now let's try to see. Now if you try to see, now I am able to access this element. Why? Because after the view initialization I am able to get it. But what we are trying to get here, what we are trying to get is a wrong one, not wrong one. So but for us it is not required, not our requirement. Why? Because I am able to access this paragraph element in this app component, but I don't want to access this one in the app component. So I don't want this behavior. What I want is, as this one belongs to this app content child, I want to access this paragraph element in the content child component. But here I can't use the view @view child. Why? Because whatever the element is appearing here, then only I can use this one. So what we need to do, so here we need to use the @content child. Okay, so content child of ref, okay, and para, and here I can say that one is an element ref. Okay. I don't know why this one, this file itself is very slow. So let's try to, I will try to show you another scenario also. So for example, let's try to say why this file is very slow. So let's go to this app component.ts file. Okay, I want to show you another thing also. So now this one is initialized, right? So let's try to have ng after, we have another one, right? ng after content init. So this one, so let's check that whether this paragraph is available in this one or not. I told you that so this after content init will fire when this ng content is placed, but here in this one we don't have any ng content here. So this one is not getting any ng content here, like this ng content from anywhere. So let's try to see that whether this paragraph element is available or not. If you try to see here, in the ng after content also it is undefined. So that means this paragraph element will be available in this component, app component, understand? In this component only in the ng after view init. Let's go into this one, and here let's try to implement the same thing at the here element ref. Okay, so I am trying to use this content child. Why? Because I am trying to use the content child because it doesn't have that paragraph element here, so it is coming through the ng content. So that is the reason we need to use the ng content. Now let's try to use ng after content init. So I told you, right, when this one will fire, when this ng content external template is fired, then it will be firing. So now let's try to see that whether I can be able to get this one or not. So now if I try to see this one, let's go here and comment out this one. Okay, let's try to keep it. We'll see, you will understand. So here in this parent component we are getting is undefined, but in the child component we are able to get that element in the ng after content init itself. You try to understand why? Because in this ng after content init, here after ng content the content is placed, this one will be fired, this one will be fired. So because of that reason we are able to get that element. So that element is present in the ng content only. If that element is present at the top somewhere for this one #ref2, so this one will not be available here. Why? Because this one should be accessed only through the view child. So now if I try to use this ng after view init, then also it will be available. Why? Because ng after view init will fire after the ng after content init, so we will be available. So this is about the content child. So content child and the view child. Okay, so this is all about the content child. So content child and the view child difference. So you need to understand this one. So content child and the view child difference. So what are the things you need to learn? So when we need to use the view child and when we need to use the content child. So this is all about the life cycle hooks and all those things. So now what we will try to do is, one second. So this is the directives. So now let's learn about the directives thing. What is a directive? Okay, so directive means, what I can say is, in our Angular everything is a directive. So what I can say is the component which we are trying to implement, that is nothing but an indirectly, it's a directive only. Okay, so directives are everywhere in the Angular. The directives are the very important part in the Angular. The component which we are trying to implement is nothing but, in another way if you try to see, it is a directive only. Okay, so it is a directive only, that is the thing. So here what is a directive means, so blindly when we need to use the directive. Okay, let's say that let's try to take a simple thing. Okay, let's try to take a simple thing. I am having a paragraph element or div element. Okay, so this is a paragraph element, which should be in red background color. Okay, this should be in the red background color. Okay, let's say that this is a simple thing. So what you will try to do is something like, you will try to add class is equal to bg-red. You will have a class and you can implement it. Let's say that we have some more, what I can say is some more functionalities there. So I am trying to show you with a simple example. So I want to apply this red background color. Now not only in this place, so what I can do is, I have another variable, this type of template only in the app component itself, another component. I'm having this one. This should be in red color, red background color. This one also. Okay. So now for this one also you need to apply a class. So as this one is a simple thing, so bg-red and you can do it. But here let's assume that, so this one is a small one line thing, you can apply it. For example, let's say that for this template you need to do so more logic, something like when you are hovering I need to show something, when I am moving mouse out I am trying to do it something, and the same situation I need to repeat it for this one also. When I am mouse hovering I need to do something, when I am removing the mouse I need to do something. So the same scenario I need to implement for these two elements which are present in the different components. Okay, so for this type of things what we can do is, we can apply a directive for this one. Okay, for doing the same functionality, element type functionality, HTML type functionality for the different elements in a component. So for example, let's say that for this one, when we are doing the mouse enter, I need to do, when this mouse enter is there, I need to do some on mouse execute or something like this. I need to do on mouse leave, I need to do on click, I need to do something. Okay, for this element. So these all methods you need to implement in this content child.component.ts. The same scenario I need to do for this element also. So then I need to write here, and these same methods I need to implement in this component only. Okay, so that means we are trying to do the duplicate thing. Okay, instead of doing those things, so directives will be very useful for us to achieve this situation. For example, I want to apply this red background color. Okay, and also for this one also I want to apply a red background color. So as this one is a very smaller thing, I will try to show you. We can do some major work is there also, we can do it through the directive. So now let's try to create a directive. Okay, so here what I will try to do is, let's try to create a folder and I can have a directives. Okay, and in this one I will try to add new file. Okay, or you can take any name, background highlight dot directive dot ts. Okay, so I am having it. So we should naming convention should be something like background highlight dot directive dot ts. Now see, if you try to see here, we are able to see so this icon has also been changed. Actually Angular, it is in the blue color, green color. So now let's try to see here. This is a simple class only. Directive is a simple class only. So background, let's try to give the name background highlight directive. Okay, so this is the name. So this is a class. So for this one to become a directive, for this one to behave as a directive, we need to inject the directive decorator. Okay, so this is a directive decorator, so it should be imported from the Angular core. Now this directive decorator will have a selector, same thing like what we'll having, same thing like this component. So this class, in order to behave as a component, we need to insert component directive and we have a selector. In the same scenario, this time this is not a directive, and we will be having a selector, and I will try to give something like app highlight, app background highlight. Okay, so this is the directory we are having, so this is the name we are having. Okay, now let's try to copy this one. Now I want to, so this one, if you try to use like this, okay, if I try to use like this selector, so then how we need to use, so if, for example, let's say that if you are using in the app component.ts, the selector we are using it as an app-root, so then we are using this type of selector. What we need to use, so this one behaves as a something like this app-root, right? So we need to use it like this. Or otherwise, if I want to use it as an attribute, what I need to do, I need to use the square brackets, then it will become an attribute selector. If I want to use it as a class, what I need to use, I need to use the dot thing. These are all things I already explained to you. Okay, so now here in the directory, the selector I am using it as in like this. So then how I need to use this one, app background something like that I need to use. So let's try to use this one. Okay, let's try to copy this one, and let's go to the app component.ts file or app component.html file, and for this one I need to apply like this, right? So I can use something like, I can paste it here. Okay, let's copy this one and I can paste it inside this one. Okay, so this is thing I am using. So now before using this one, so I think obviously you'll get an error. Okay, I don't know about this element. You are trying to use this one, I don't know about this element, so please try to add. So no error schema and all those things, it will be asking you, so that is a different thing. So we need to add it in the declaration here. What is that one? Background something name is there, right? Background highlight, we need to add it in the declaration. So where we are adding in the declarations, we need to add it here only. So this directory is nothing but something like indirectly component only, but this is the core. Component is a something like wrapper of the directory. So this directory is a core thing. Now let's go to this one. Let's try to see the output, whether I can get the red color or not. So now I'm able to see the output. So we are not getting the red color. Why? Because we haven't implemented anything. So now I am able to see the output without any errors. But now what I am trying to use here, if you try to understand, this is not a component. This is not a component. Now this one is a directive. Now let's try to go to the directive thing. Where is this directive? Yeah. So here you will be having a constructor. Okay. And here also you can have a lifecycle methods ng on init. Okay. I told you, right? Directory is nothing but indirectly it is a component. You can have all the lifecycle loops, whatever you want. So in this constructor, okay, you will get the element. So for which element you have applied this directive, you will be able to get that element. Okay. So element of type element ref. So we know that this is an element, right? This is of type element ref. So now on ng on init, if I try to do console.log this dot element, let's try to see whether I can get that element or not. Hey, what happened to this one? So now if I try to see the output, see, I'm able to get this element ref native element p. See, so this p. If I try to check this text content dot native element dot text content, we'll try to see whether I'm able to get that one. This should be red color, something like that we are having, right? See here, this should be in red background color. For which one I have applied this directive, I'm able to get that. Where is that one gone? Here I have applied, right? I'm able to get this text thing. So now I'm able to get this element. Why can't I apply that red color and all this? Whatever the element thing, what I want to apply. So why can't I apply it to this one? So let's go to this background highlight color. So I know that I got this one. Style dot, let's try to remove this console.log. Let's try to take all the things. This dot element dot native element dot style dot background color. I don't know whether it will apply or not. Let's try to see. Background color is equal to red. Okay, so I have applied red color. So far no errors. Let's try to see. See, now we are able to see the red color. So we have applied this one through the directive. Now this one is the directive we are using, and we have applied a background color. Now let's go. So as this one looks very simple, so but you can write so many logics here. Now what I can do here in the app component HTML, I have used it like this, right? So now wherever I want to apply the same logic for this one, so I can go into this lifecycle here. Where is that lifecycle? Not lifecycle, content child. I think I have implemented that. Yeah, here I want to apply the same thing, right? So why can't I use this one? App, I that one app background color, whether it is there or not, I don't know. App background highlight directory or something like this, it is there, I don't remember where is the directory name. Yeah, let's try to implement this one. So I can use this one directly, and I can see which one. So see, this one also got in red color. So that means the common functionality in the HTML template, if you want to do it, we can use it, we can do it through the directives. Now, so this one normally if you try to see like this implementation, now you will be getting a confused that whether it is a what I can say, it is a component or a directive, you will be getting confused, right? So normally the general implementation for this one is, for directives we use a square bracket like this, so that we can implement that one. Instead of using this one, we will implement using a attribute level, so like this. Okay, so now let's go to this content child also, and here also we can apply this one. That's it. So we can apply this one as a extra div. Yeah, so we can apply this one like this, and then also it will apply the same thing. What happened to this one? Div is there, app component.html. Oh, ep, I don't know what happened. Let's try to see the output, whether I can get it or not. Yeah, see, now also we are able to see that both are in the red color. So now this time I have applied as an attribute, here. So this div element is there like this. So this is the basic attribute creation. If you try to understand attributes, the built-in attributes available are the ng class, ng style, like this you have used it, right? So the same scenario I have used it one. So is equal to and all those things, you'll try to see it afterwards. So this is the basic thing which we can create directives. So those are the built-in directives. This is our own custom directive which we have created it. So this is all about the directives concept. So in the next session, what we'll try to learn is, we'll try to deep understand about the directive, how we can pass. For example, here I'm making it as a red color. I don't want the red color. So for example, let's say that in app component, I want to apply it as a green color, and here I want to apply it as a red color. So that means we can pass the value here. Okay. And also we can pass the value here also. So here I need to apply a green color. Okay. So that I can catch this value, depending on that value, we can assign to that one. So let's try to see those scenarios, and also other scenarios also, how we can, for example, if I want to hover the mouse here, I want to make it as a green color. If I move it, I want to apply it as some other color, something like that template thing. If you want to apply means, you'll try to see it in the next. So we'll try to deep dive in the directives. So this is all about the directives basic introduction. So when we will be using this directive is, so whenever you want to write the common functionality in the HTML template, then only we will be using these directives, not in the TypeScript logic. Whenever you want to implement the TypeScript logic in the common implementation means, that is another scenario. We'll try to learn after the directives. Those are called as services. We'll try to learn it afterwards. So this is about the directives thing, simple thing, simply I can say. So in the next video, we'll learn about, in the next session, we'll learn about the directives deep concept, and also the services introduction. We'll try to see structural directive also. We'll try to see the custom implementation, difference between structural and attribute. Then afterwards, we'll go move on to the Angular services.